Michael, thank you for joining Equities.com here at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square.
Thanks, Sylvia.
GSV Capital is a publicly traded investment fund that invests in privately held venture capital companies. Tell us a little bit about your business model and the types of companies you invest in.
So our business model is all about how we identify and access the fastest growing top private venture-backed companies in the world. So we operate out of Silicon Valley, where a lot of these companies are headquartered. So we use our network and our experience to find ways to get involved with these companies.
Tell us a little bit about the types of companies. It seems like it's a broad range, from transportation companies to educational companies that are private, social media companies. Give us some examples of the fantastic companies you invest in.
Sure. Well, 55% of the portfolio is in our top 10 positions. Our largest position is Palantir, which is a software company focused on security and big data. Spotify, Dropbox, Lyft, Coursera, Snapchat are all important positions of ours.
Wow, you mentioned some very key brand names, and it's hard to believe that they're still private. In many cases, it seems like companies are very shy to go public early on in their life cycle. So is GSV Capital a way of getting in on some of these companies early stage?
Well, absolutely. And fundamentally, what's changed over the past 15 years is there's been an 80% reduction in the number of IPOs, which is secular, it's not cyclical. That change is going to be permanent. And so the fastest growing, most dynamic companies today are all private. It used to be, 20 years ago, if you were an investor looking for growth companies, you could hang around the IPO hoop, and hundreds of companies went public every year. That's just not the case anymore. So if you really want to be exposed to growth, the best way to do it is to invest in private companies. And GSV Capital provides a publicly traded liquid access vehicle to get exposure to the transformative companies that are changing the world.
It sounds fascinating, and I want to focus a little bit on your background. It seems that you've been writing a lot about stocks. Tell us how you got into this business.
Well, I was a research analyst for a number of years. I was head of growth research at Lehman Brothers. I was head of global growth research at Merrill Lynch and head of growth research and strategy at Montgomery Securities. So most of my adult career was focused on how to identify and invest in fast-growing small companies with big potential. Then in 2001, started an investment bank, Think Equity Partners, which was that was the business model, was basically to partner with these young emerging businesses early in their life cycle. And what changed, when the dot-com bubble burst, was the structural issues that I alluded to earlier resulted in the IPO world just basically being turned on its head. And so that, basically the experience I had gave me that exposure to the fact that IPOs were not going to be the way that if you're a growth investor, you're going to find the best companies to invest in. And so really started looking at the private company world for that opportunity.
And it seems like you found a way to solve that problem with your firm. And I want to ask you about the book that you're about to kick off. It's on all of the fascinating things that are happening globally, not only in Silicon Valley. Can you talk to us about the book?
Sure. And so GSV stands for Global Silicon Valley. And so while we're based in Silicon Valley, what we've seen as a mega trend is the mindset and of entrepreneurship and innovation that's made Silicon Valley such a remarkable place is going global and it's going viral. So we're publishing a book that's called March 7th called the Global Silicon Valley Handbook. And really what it does is look at this innovation landscape around the world. I like to say from Austin to Boston, from Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Shanghai to Mumbai to Dubai. That's the Global Silicon Valley. And so we're interested in connecting this global network around innovation and entrepreneurship. And how do you know where to find the best companies, who the best investors are, but also a little bit tongue-in-cheek to have fun with it as well.
It sounds like a fascinating book, and we wish you a lot of luck. Are you finding that there is more of a community that is coming together, or is this book one of the first steps to engage that community?
It's a mega trend that we see that's happening as we speak. And so you go, Silicon Valley remains incredible, but you go to places like China and India, and it's just amazing the level of innovation and entrepreneurship that's going on in terms of activity. And so I think increasingly, if you're going to find the next Facebook or the next Snapchat, It's very likely it could be coming out of China or coming out of Indonesia or some of these emerging hotspots.
Lastly, I want to ask you about industry disruption in general. Last year, it seemed to really reach new levels, and would love your take on what is some of the most fascinating disruptors or sectors that you're seeing some disruption in this year.
Well, I mean, first of all, the mega trend of the internet, everybody thinks that's sort of over, but that's just, I think, really, we're talking about a 200-year cycle. I mean, it's disrupting everything, and there's disproportionate gain to the leader in a category. That's the internet economics. I think some areas that are kind of coming into their own, blockchain, everybody got familiar with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is just the beginning, really, of the disruption that you're going to see almost in every industry, I believe, created by the blockchain. You look at healthcare, and basically the fact that the digital doctors and the ability to get more accurate, on-the-fly, inexpensive medical advice and treatment is something that is going to be very real. And I think both how that affects traditional doctors and hospitals and drug companies. I mean, it's going to be fascinating with huge opportunities being created.
It truly is fascinating, and a lot of exciting times ahead. Michael, we want to thank you again, and for those that are interested in the Global Silicon Valley Handbook, where can they purchase it?
Well, you can go to Amazon, and that's one of the easiest ways, but it'll be at all the bookstores starting March 7th.
Well, congratulations on your latest book, and wishing GSV a lot of continued luck and success.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.